Assalamualaikum everybody. So this is my second video on my YouTube channel. And this video I just basically wanted to show how I take measurements. Now again, on my first video I stated that the techniques that I use are techniques that I learned on, basically off YouTube and in books and stuff like that. And just because I do my measuring this way or sew a certain way, that does not mean that you have to do it. So I'm just here to basically give a couple tips and some techniques, and hopefully you guys can use them. So before you take your measurements, when your client comes, your clients could be 6 foot tall, 7 feet tall, you never know. So you always want to have a measuring tape, and a lot of measuring tapes go up to 60, but I like the measuring tapes that go up to 120 because I have had clients that are really tall, and the 60-inch measuring tape will not do if you're measuring someone that's really tall. Secondly, you want something to write with, pen, pencil, marker, whatever you choose. And lastly, you want a book or something to take notes in. My book is a little raggedy, but it's okay. So the first thing I do when the client comes, I like to take their height. Like, I like to take the length. And usually for the length, I like to start at the shoulder. And on our shoulders, it's like a little, if you move your arm up and down, it's a dent in the shoulder when you move it up. So I like to start right there, go over the bust, and go down to the floor. So this measurement, her length will be 64, and that will be the length of a whole dress, a floor length garment, dress, etc. The second measurement I like to take is across the shoulders. Sorry, the garment is too big, so I had to pin it in the back like this, but I like to take from shoulder to shoulder. 14. That's what I usually do. Actually, 13. Shoulder to shoulder. She is all discombobulated. Let's see. These mannequins are kind of hard to work with. Okay, so the next length, the next measurement is from the same dip in the shoulder down to the wrist or wherever the client wants the sleeve to come to. So if you're going down to the wrist, 21 is the length of this garment, or sometimes if I do it on myself, 25. Next measurement, and I'm not writing it down, but after every measurement that you take, you should write it down. So the next measurement I like to take, that I do take, is the bust measurement. Now, you're supposed to go over the widest part of the bust, and I never make it too tight. You never want to go like this, because then if you make a dress, it'll look like she has no boobs, so you don't want that. I usually do it a little loose, so if it was really tight, it would be 33, but I don't really make it that tight because the majority of my clients come for garments, so we don't wear garments that tight. So you basically want a couple finger space in here. So 34 would be the bust. Next measurement is under bust. So you want to measure right underneath the bust, and this is good for like a semi-swing, because you have two pieces, a top and a bottom, the bodice part and then the skirt part. So when you take the under bust measurement, this is where the seam will go. Now this garment is too big on the mannequin, but usually this is where the seam would be, up here. So I go from the highest point of the shoulder over the largest part of the bust and right underneath. This is underneath the bust, but I don't go directly underneath the bust. The seam is not supposed to be there. I go an inch under, so it will be 14. Next measurement I take is underarm, basically the armhole. I do 15. I do sometimes I do it a little loose because you don't want it to be so constricted. So that would be 15 and a half. Then I take the top of the arm, which would be right here. I take the top of the arm. Then I take the wrist. And usually for the wrist, you don't want it to be so tight because they have to be able to get their hands out. So if you make it tight, they won't be able to get their hands through with a non-stretch garment anyway. With the stretch garment, you know, usually they'll be able to fit their hands through it and you can make it a little bit tighter. But with the non-stretch, I usually don't make it so tight. So on my wrist, it's an 8, and I would mark that down. Next measurement I take is the waist. And there are 2 measurements for waist. I usually take the natural waist. Some people, like if you're wearing jeans or something, you would do the low waist. This is where people wear their jeans at. But if you're doing, you know, a garment, the waist is when you bend over, there's a dent. That's your natural waist. It is usually right above your belly button. So, and I don't do that tight either, unless it's for you know, the customer, the client wants it really tight or really fitted. So her waist would be 26. Also, when you're taking measurements, you want your client to come in clothing that is not too big. Like for this garment right here, for this client, now if this was an actual client, this would be too big for her. Everything is really giant on her, so I can't really get an accurate measurement. You see how much fabric that is left over? I really wouldn't be able to get an accurate measurement on her because all the fabric is bunched up and it's distorting my measurements. But you know, other than that, those are the measurements that I usually take. That could be for an A-line, for a semi-swing, for a swing, basically for dresses in general. Now, usually for a skirt, I would ask the client where they want it. As I said, there are 2 different waist measurements. Some people wanted high waist, which would sit on their natural waist, and then some people wanted low waist, which is pretty much right here. And then you'll go from the waist measurement down to the floor. And that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and hopefully the measurements that I gave and the tips that, you know, I shared, you can use them to improve your sewing. Until next time, assalamu alaikum.